What's up, guys? My name is Tim Roswick, and today we're talking about level design. But I wanted to talk about a specific technique of level design that I didn't create. I don't remember where I came across it, but I've definitely developed it over a long period of time and kind of worked on it and kind of realized it and discovered it over and over again. And that's the process of subtraction. So why don't we go into kind of like what at least what I did in the beginning and what I think a lot of people do when they build levels or build games is quite the opposite of subtraction. I think they go for addition. I know when I started when I started my first platformer, the first thing I worked on was the running and jumping. And I was like, okay, running and jumping is great. Got this cool thing. It's going to be awesome. But then I was like, all right, I got to add a bunch more mechanics. Like, what about like a swing jump rope? What about like a reverse gravity thing? What about all kinds of other stuff? And I kept adding mechanics, and so I just had all this stuff in the game, and I was just like, how is this all gonna work? And it was great, but it each element on its own was great, but like together it just felt like I had somehow just created some big mess of, I don't know, just mechanics and stuff. And it felt like it didn't have a soul. It felt hollow. It felt generic. And I hate the feeling of generic games because I don't want to make generic games. I have, which is why it pisses me off because some of my mobile games would kind of come off as generic, and that's not what I want to do. So in kind of the spirit of trying to find a better way to make levels and trying to really challenge myself creatively on how to think about level design and how to think about how game design really, I started the process of subtraction. And basically, instead of trying to add something to make a level fun or a part of your game fun, try subtracting something. So for me, I use this a lot in Phylophobia. One of the things that I'll do is, for example, I will put spikes on the roof of a level. That will effectively subtract their ability to jump, which makes the whole level about movement, if you see what I'm saying. So maybe not even the whole level, maybe just a certain section. Like, let's say I have these enemies that activate when you touch them, and then you have like about a split second to get out of their way or they kill you. So rather than allow the player to just maybe jump on them and jump away from them, if I put spikes on the roof, then they have to kind of run through them, right? And I force them to be speedy. I can do a lot of really cool things by trying to remove elements from the game. I think the whole idea behind Phylophobia is really with the shadow mechanic, is the subtraction of your visual senses. Like you can't see anything except the things you have line of sight for. You can't see the rest of the level. A lot of the games that have single pane levels, like I have, like N Plus or any of these other games, you can see the entire level. With Phylophobia, you can't see the entire level. You can only see what you have immediate access to. So the whole game is kind of based on subtraction, if you think about it. But this is really, really important, I think, when it comes to game design in general, because a lot of people, myself included, when I started, and still to this day I struggle with this, our first instinct when we're designing a game is to add more stuff, right? Like, what else can we add to make it fun? How can we add mechanics? How can we add bad guys? How can we add all this different stuff? And I feel like just adding works sometimes, right? Like when you don't have enough, it definitely has its pros, but what if you can deliver the same fun or the same change up in gameplay or the same experience by subtracting? I feel like subtraction is a great way to really build something that stands out, that's memorable. And I think it's especially important when you're designing puzzles. Phylophobia is designed to be an action platformer first, but there are some puzzle elements. And this is something that I learned right away when I was designing, is like, complex puzzles are not fun. They're just like, when a puzzle gets complex, it just gets confusing and it's not fun and it gets frustrating very easily. The best puzzles are super simple. When you figure it out, you're like, oh, that's it. You get that aha moment, right? Like, oh, I see how that works. And you know, the less elements you can use to create that puzzle, the better. I have a level that has like 4 switches, and every time you turn on a switch, it blocks a wall. And in Phylophobia, when a wall is blocked, the entire rest of the level is blocked because of the shadow mechanic. That's just so confusing. You don't know what switch is what. And I've seen this from playtests. Like people just wanted to quit. They were like, "What the hell is this? Like, I don't want to play this at all." Right? So like, um, it's important that I feel like subtraction is what kind of makes something memorable and unique. And if you can break something down to the core of what it is, the core of what makes it fun, right? If it's a level, it might be one element or one little puzzle element or one specific enemy you want them to encounter. When you think about it like that, and you think about, okay, how can I take away some of their abilities, right? If they can sprint, what if you put spikes at the end of a runway? If they can jump, what if you put spike, or like, you know, some enemy above their head? Not just in simple examples like that, but there are plenty of examples of subtraction where you can use less instead of more, just to kind of make things, you know, feel a little more fluid, a little more designed, if you will. Like, and every generic platformer you've ever seen has a bunch of just random shit in it, right? And I feel like the more you add sometimes, the more you risk just coming off as generic and non-memorable and just like a bunch of different stuff. But if you can do a lot with a little bit, maybe take away a certain element, you can make something really memorable. And I think it's really important to just kind of think about that, right? Like, especially since creativity, I think, thrives so much on restraints, right? Like I have a whole video about how you're more creative when you put restraints on yourself. When you say, okay, I can't do this. I gotta stick within these colors for this thing that I'm painting, or I gotta stick within these mechanics for this thing that I'm building. The more restrictions you put on yourself, the more creative you are. And I feel like subtraction helps me not only build games, but build levels specifically by thinking about how I can remove elements, right? Like, so when I design levels, I actively think that. Sometimes I may add a mechanic, but I may remove one at the same time. And I really design my game around that. So that's all I got for you today. It's kind of short, but I thought I would share it with you. Hope it helped you out. If it did, please leave me a comment and a like down below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Have you ever used subtraction to build levels or build games? Is there anything you removed from something? Let me know down below because I'd love to hear from you guys. Once again, my name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you again tomorrow.